The German Army command style is really something you want to think about when leading normal businesses too. Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel where we make operational excellence practical. And today we'll be talking a bit about this concept of auftragstaktik, which is a German army philosophy. Actually, the name is sort of given to it by non-Germans, but this is the command style, in English better known as mission type command, that has been adopted by, well, most NATO countries after the Second World War because it has proven so effective. Now, that's a nice bit of history. Go dive into that if you want to know more about it. It's actually quite an interesting part of history. But for us in everyday leadership, in manufacturing, where we hope not to be on the battlefield, although some days may really feel like you're on a battlefield, there is a couple of concepts in that leadership style that really make it interesting to study and apply. Also, there's a couple of, difficulties and requirements that you really have to get into your system before you can use it effectively. So let's dive into that. Now, first, that concept. The idea is that the sort of old way of army commands is where your officers, they just tell you what you have to do. Go take these 20 men, storm that hill, make sure I get it, chop, 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 speed into it, and I don't want to see you back unless you got the flag planted there. So, stuff like that. Or even worse, sort of like on a ship, rudders up, full speed ahead, aye, captain, yes, we do this, what's next, this is next. You're basically making your captain a bottleneck for everything. And we'll get into the more details, but basically you're really not allowing your crew and the people directly on the ground to do their most effective thinking, planning, changing, making sure that you meet your objectives. Then there's the, hey, this is what I want to reach type of leadership. I would like to have some battlefield superiority over there. I would like for us to reach that part of the ocean, preferably undetected. Or we need to make speed because we need to reinforce that squadron. Stuff like that is all goal-oriented. So here we're talking about, I intend to do this. Now let's all go and get that done. That is the concept of auftragstaktik. The idea that you give away, so auftragen, not really a tactical part, but the thing you would tactically like to reach. And this is also why in German, actually the word isn't even used that much, because it's more the goals and the command that are given out, that are shared. But the idea is that the lower ranking officers can make all kinds of decisions when they're in the field. And they know that they can make the right decisions because their commanders have shared what their intent is. So this is also commander's intent, a critical part of this command style, of this auftragstaktik. What do we need for that? Because actually, it already sounds pretty good to also have in your business, doesn't it? But if your team leaders know what you want them to do and can make the correct decisions when they're in the breach, in the fire, at the shop floor, then things are going to be a lot more effective. You don't want, when there is a problem at the line, that everybody goes calling up the chain of command and the hierarchy in your organization, and that the site director or the operations director always needs to make all kinds of decisions about everything. Now, it would be much better if, in fact, the operator themselves can make the correct decisions, but if they can't really reach it, then one level higher, right? Not 3 levels higher. That would create an enormous bottleneck around your production manager, operations director, site director, right? You don't want there to be an information and decision bottleneck. Now, you want your organization to be more self-serving, autonomous, right? So they need to be able to get out of their own mess and to really get production going. Now, what do you need for that? Because it sounds great, but it really requires a couple of things for this not to become another mess. Because if you've got people who don't know what they're doing, who don't know why they're trying to do something, and who are sort of lost, and you then don't guide them and don't tell them what to do, oh boy, right? This is going nowhere. So the key components, and the US Army manual, and actually all of the NATO Army manuals, they got a whole list of things in there, but let's boil it down to 3 core components. So we've got competence, skill, the ability to actually do the work, but also the ability to make the decisions. We need clear goals, right? This commander's intent. We need to have goals before you can track them out, right? Before you can actually hand them over. If you at higher management don't know what the goals of your organization are and what you really would like the people on the shop floor to do, and what to prioritize if things go wrong, because you can tell them what you would like in sunny weather. You want and a low cost and a good material, and the output has to be high, and preferably with only 4 people, not the 6 we sometimes have. Very nice, but then a line breaks down, or then something goes wrong. Where are the priorities? What is most important? What is the main intent? What's the main goal of what we are doing here? So that needs to be super clear before you can actually hand that over. And then, you need a good deal of trust between the layers, between people, right? From the leader's standpoint, they need to trust their team members, but the team members also need to trust their leader. Why is that? Because you will mess up, right? This system has more freedom. Mistakes will be made. Now, honestly, the old system, the direct command style, it also makes mistakes. But at least in this case, it was all very clear. The commander is in charge of all of the larger strategy and what you need to do, and giving the orders. And those orders were probably sound, or maybe not, but then at least it's clear that it's their fault. And then it was not executed properly. Oh, it's either the fault of the soldiers or it's the fault of the terrain, or maybe the enemy was a bit smarter. Yeah, it's very easy to make excuses here. When you only share your intent, your clear goals, then when stuff goes wrong, the decisions that were made by the junior officers, or hopefully in your case by your shop floor management, well, in hindsight, you can always think of a better way. Well, wouldn't it have worked better if you would have? If that is your leadership style, it'll be very difficult to gain the trust of your team members, because they don't trust that you will have their backs, that you will allow them to make mistakes. So you need all of them to get to that nice sweet spot in the middle. The good thing is you can train it, right? Competence is something you can work on. You have to work on it anyway, but this is, think about how you are in your leadership style. And I don't mean per se you as a person, but your team with you as an important member of that. Discuss it. How competent are actually our operators, team leaders, technicians who do the breakdown fixing, stuff like that. The first line of defense, how competent, how trained are they? And if they don't really know the machinery that well, they don't really know their stuff that well, especially they don't know it better than you, the manager, go work on that. Right? Machine skills, process skills, repair skills, they can all be trained. And honestly, relatively easily. We always complain, oh, it takes so long to train somebody, oh, it's so difficult. Yeah, it is if you don't prepare for it. Right? Now, I'm not saying that training and education is a simple thing, but it can definitely be done. And if you know that the competence level in your organization, especially shop floor level, but also for leadership, but is on the low end, go work on that. Then, are you setting clear goals? Are you really telling them, this is what I want you to prioritize? If you have to choose, let's choose more this type of goal. Simple example, in manufacturing, if you've got a production plan, most of the companies I see planning sort of over plans a little bit. They plan for the sunny day and a little bit more, because what if production runs really smoothly, then they might just stop working. Trust problem, but okay. So they plan a bit too much, and most days the plan won't be reached. On a day with a big breakdown, the plan will really not be reached. Then what happens? Right? So what do you want production to do when today is not going as planned? Should they just continue in the order of the plan and drop stuff off the end of the list? Maybe, if you set up your plan like that. But in most factories, the plan is set up in such a way that the setups from one product to the other require the least amount of time, are the easiest on the materials. There is a certain order in there for efficiency, not per se the priority of what needs to be done. In that case, planning will have to also provide clear goals of, well, that order we really need, this order, well, maybe you can just skip if you're pressed for time. We need you to start that order at 5 o'clock because otherwise you cannot finish it. So whatever happens before today, if you can start it early, that's fine. But if you're still in delays, at 5, cut it off, start that order because those numbers I really need. So that is a very practical example of clarifying what are priorities, what are goals. And yes, these are difficult decisions because any planner will say, but I need it all. Well, you're not getting it all. So who are you going to allow to make any priorities? Because if you don't do it, it will be done for you. And then the big one, having that trust. Well, when the competence is low and when you honestly don't really set clear goals yet, things are going to go wrong so often that I can imagine that you're not building up any trust. This has to be built up. So what can you do? Go step by step. Right? This is a bit like the maturity for a skill, right? The 4 levels of skill maturity. We guide at first, and then we really still in this type of command, but we move over slowly, piece by piece. And so first on the simpler questions, we go to the, if this happens, if a breakdown happens, I want you to get that fixed in a good way and make sure that the line is clean, more than really get it up and try to go and then work with a dirty or a bit troublesome machine. Or maybe the other way around. Right? Maybe your strategy is get it back up, get it producing, because we'll call in our line specialist to take it down after your production run. It depends on your production parameters. Maybe your raw material needs to get through and you can sort of cut a hole into your planning a bit later. I don't know. Hopefully you do know. So stuff like that, small steps, and at some point you can expand. And the more you see, the more you can trust that your people can do it. But then what if they do make all the mistakes? Right? So what if basically you can't trust them with the plan? Well, here's where feedback comes into this mix. So we have our training. Priority and making choices. And here, the main tool to build the trust is feedback. When you provide nice, constructive, sort of neutral-ish, of course, neutral as in when a good thing has been done, it's a positive feedback. When stuff was messed up, it'll be negative feedback. But in a way that is about the work, about the decisions, and about the way, as a leader, you would like your team to handle things. But also draw some of the blame probably to yourself, right? Check the system. Are we competent? Who needs to be trained? Did we set clear goals? What do we need to do next time? What would I have liked, maybe in hindsight, that you do? And super important, if it was in the moment a pretty good choice, but it didn't work out, acknowledge that. Those are the most important feedback ways to gain trust. That is, I see why you picked that choice. In hindsight, it was a wrong choice, but at the moment you made it, I fully understand why you did it. And I think you made a good choice at that moment. Right? That way, you really instill that you trust your people and your people will trust you to have their back. Now, if they made a wrong choice in that moment as well because they didn't look into certain information or they just made a error in judgment, discuss that as well, of course. How do you make these choices? What is the priority? But really think about intent, not result. Did they, based on the knowledge before handling, have the correct decisions? The best way to build trust within your team. That and talking about this concept. Talking with your team about where the competence gaps are, what needs to be trained, if the goals are clear enough, how can we actually set those choices and priorities more upfront, more from your planning, your sales, your management teams who sort of have that big picture and can set which are the priority areas. And make sure you talk about decisions made. What was a good decision? What was maybe not so good a decision? What was maybe not the decision you would have made, but still a very good decision? Super important as well, so that you can give and receive that trust. Now, when you get that house in order, you can give away more and more and more of the tactical decisions, and that will strengthen your organization tremendously. It works wonders in the army, but it also really works on the shop floor, because you want that good decisions are taken any time of the day, right? If you work 24/7, well, you are not working 24/7. So you've got shift leaders, you've got senior operators who work in their own rhythm, like in 5 or so shifts to cover all of those production times. You want them to make good decisions at night, in the weekend as well, to feel responsibility, to take responsibility, and to have that autonomy. That really builds also in joy of working. I mean, I won't dive into that topic too much, but I've also done already a video. You can find it on the internet, on YouTube, on the internet, a lot about building joy in your work. It's autonomy and mastery are super important. So can you actually do the work by yourself? Can you make your own decisions? And can you feel proud? And do you know that you are doing your work well? That and respect or other sort of praising you, right? Recognition, making sure that you're doing something useful and you get recognized for it. But especially the two of autonomy and mastery, really strong in this. So this will give you a much happier and more effective workforce. Think about it. It's not easy to reach. It's not for nothing that the Army trains and trains and trains all of their leaders in this. It is a good way for your company as well. A company structure, a company hierarchy resembles an army way more than it resembles an actual democracy. Companies are not, most of them, democracies. So look at army leadership styles and take your lessons from it. I hope you liked that explanation. If you want to know a bit more on these or other leadership topics, let me know in the comments below. For now, I wish you the best of luck. Traging auf your tactics. And as always, don't forget to also enjoy the continuous improvement journey.